Microsoft Word includes an accessibility checker that helps to identify and repair issues in your documents. Be aware that it may not catch every issue, but it is an excellent tool that not only helps to identify problems, it also provides step-by-step instructions for how to fix the problems. This tool is available on PC only, not Mac. However, I will provide some resources at the end of this video for other checkers that are available for free. Upon completion of this video tutorial, you should be able to check your Microsoft Word documents for accessibility issues and correct the problems. To demonstrate how to use the accessibility checker, I'll use the syllabus Word template that I downloaded from the GRCC website at grcc.edu/syllabus. I have completed the customization of the syllabus for my class, changed some of the formatting, and made a few additions. When creating or editing a Word document, many good practices should be applied. The document should be well structured with headings that were created using styles. Links should be descriptive and may be set up to open outside the Blackboard frame. Graphics should contain alt text. Tables should be simple, small, and contain a text explanation, along with the identification of the header row in the properties. All of these practices were applied and demonstrated in the previous video tutorials. For this document, I intentionally removed some of the good practices and created a few accessibility issues. Word's accessibility checker should identify the issues, and then I'll demonstrate how to correct the problems. I'm using Word 2013 for this syllabus document, but most of the features are similar in other more recent versions of Word and other word processing applications. However, as I mentioned earlier, the accessibility tool I'll be using now is available on PC only, not Mac. To get started with the accessibility checker, I'll click the File tab located in the upper left of the screen. After I click the File tab, I enter Backstage View. Next, be sure that you're on the Info tab. Next, I'll click the Check for Issues button and then check Accessibility. This opens the Accessibility Checker task pane on the right side of the screen. Notice the inspection results on the right side of the screen has identified 2 errors and 2 warnings for a total of 4 problems to be solved. I'll select each of these issues one at a time and then refer to the additional information on the bottom of the task pane for an explanation of the issue and how to fix it. In the Accessibility Checker task pane on the right, I'll click the first issue under Missing Alt Text. I'll click Picture 1. Clicking the issue will select the corresponding item in the document and display additional information at the bottom of the task pane for why and how to fix it. The additional information at the bottom of the task pane, located on the lower right of the screen, indicates that the alternative text helps readers understand information presented in pictures and other objects. A screen reader will read the alt text for a visually impaired student. I'll use the small scroll bar located on the lower right of the screen to read the step-by-step directions for how to fix the issue. The additional information indicates I need to right-click on the object and choose Format from the shortcut menu. In a previous video tutorial for adding alt text to graphics, I demonstrated how to add the alt text in both Word 2010 and Word 2013. I also provided good guidelines for writing alt text, along with an explanation about the use of the title and description fields. Please refer to this video for details and further explanation than what I'll demonstrate now. To fix the issue in this document for missing alt text, first I want to make sure that the image is selected, and it is. It was automatically selected when I clicked Picture 1 under the errors for missing alt text. The next thing that I'll do to add more room on the screen here is I'm going to minimize my ribbon. I'll just double click one of the tabs to make some more room here to work. Now with my image selected, I'll right click the image and then from the shortcut menu all the way at the bottom, I want to choose Format Picture. This opens the Format Picture task pane on the right side of the screen. In the task pane, look at the icons towards the top, and I want the third one from the left for Layout and Properties. After I click Layout and Properties, then I'll need to click the Alt text to expand it so I can see title and description. It's already expanded because I was in it just a short while ago. I'll leave the title field blank as it does not convert well for when this document is saved as an HTML file and for backwards compatibility issues. For a detailed explanation of why I will not use the title field, again, please see the alt text video tutorial. I'll add a good description that does not repeat information in the surrounding text and makes clear the purpose for including the image. So I'll click here in the description field, and then I'll add the description here. I've already copied it to the clipboard to save time. Now I'll just paste it in. Notice the error is no longer listed in the inspection results. I'll close the Format Picture task pane so that we have more room on the screen to work. Next, I'll click to select the error for Table. The error indicates I have no header row specified. Clicking the issue will select the corresponding item in the document and display additional information at the bottom of the task pane for why and how to fix. Notice the header row for my table is automatically selected. The additional information at the bottom of the task pane, located on the lower right of the screen, indicates that a table header row contains column headings that provide context and aid in navigation. I'll again use the small scroll bar here on the lower right of the screen to read some more of the information. Here I find step-by-step instructions for how to fix the issue. First, I'm instructed to select the header row, click the Table Tools Layout tab, and then click Repeat Header Rows in the data group and mark the selected rows as headers. In a previous video tutorial for creating tables using Microsoft Word, I demonstrated how to mark the header rows, explained the benefits, and provided several other tips. Please refer to the video for details and further explanation than what I'll demonstrate now. Next, I'll go ahead and fix the issue with the table headers. The entire row was selected when I clicked the error in the accessibility checker. You may have the entire header row selected or just position your insertion point in the header row. Either method works. Next, as instructed in the provided additional information, I'll click the Table Tools Layout tab towards the upper right. Then I'll click the Repeat Header Rows button located on the far right of the Layout ribbon. In the previous video tutorial about tables, I accomplished this task a slightly different way, but the end results are identical. Notice the error is no longer listed in the inspection results. I have two additional issues to fix. One of the problems was repeated twice. I'll click to select the next error in the Accessibility Checker task pane for Picture 1 underneath Objects Not in Line. Notice again that clicking the error will select the corresponding item in the document and display additional information at the bottom of the task pane as to why and how to fix it. The additional information at the bottom of the task pane indicates that objects not in line with text are difficult to navigate and may be inaccessible for people with vision disabilities. I mentioned this issue in the previous video tutorial about creating text and image hyperlinks using Microsoft Word. I explained in that video reasons to not center or right align a graphic. I want to be sure the information about the textbook is conveyed in the proper order. I want the screen reader to read the alt text for the image last after the paragraph for the required materials is read. I'll scroll up just a bit now so that you can see the required materials better. With my image aligned to the right as it is now, the screen reader will read Right Bundle MCTS Guide to Microsoft Windows 7. Then it will read the alt text in the middle of the paragraph for the textbook. Image about the required textbook and other resources are available from the publisher's website at cengagebrain.com. And then the screen reader will go back to the middle of the paragraph, exam number 70680, Cengage ISBN, etc. To prevent the alt text from being read in the middle of a sentence or paragraph, I'll realign the image so that it flows within the text of the document. I'll implement the How to Fix suggestion stated in the additional information located on the lower right of the screen. I'll scroll down here so that you can see it. First, I'll make sure the image is selected, and it is. And then I'll right-click the image, and from the shortcut menu, go down to Wrap Text. Next, I want In Line with Text. This places the image back to the left in line with the text. For my personal preference, I would like the alt text read after the paragraph, not before. Therefore, I'll drag the image underneath the paragraph instead of above it. Notice the warning for Objects Not in Line has disappeared from the Accessibility Checker task pane. I have one final issue in the Accessibility Checker to correct, and that is with repeated blank characters. It looks like I repeated the issue twice. I'll click the first warning for 8 characters. The corresponding item in the document is again selected, and additional information is displayed at the bottom of the task pane. The additional information on the lower right indicates that spaces, tabs, and empty paragraphs may be perceived as blanks by people using screen readers. After hearing several blanks, people might think that they have reached the end of the document. Next, I'll scroll down a little bit more for How to Fix. The How to Fix suggests that I use formatting, indenting, and styles to create white space instead of repeating blank characters. If I continue reading the additional information, I'm provided with several steps and ideas to correct the issues. When I look at the selected text in my document, it's difficult to understand the issue. To identify the issue better, I'll click on the Home tab and then look in the paragraph group in the middle of the ribbon for the Show Hide button. I'll click this button to turn it on. When this button is on, I can see non-printing characters. As the name indicates, these are characters that don't print. They're only displayed on the screen to provide additional information about your document. To the right of A and A-, I see several vertically centered dots. Further down, there are arrows pointing to the right. The dots appear for each time I press the space bar. The arrows are for each time I press the tab key. The issue is with the numerous times I press the space bar to create white space. If I count the dots on the right of A and A-, I can see that I press the space bar 8 times to add space and make it more visually appealing. As the accessibility checker already indicated, the additional space can be misinterpreted by the screen reader and confuse the learner. I'll delete these extra spaces and use the tab key only once. I'll do this for each area to the right of A and A-. Notice the warning for repeated blank characters has disappeared from the Accessibility Checker task pane. I now have a green check mark, no accessibility issues found. All of the errors and warnings are gone, but I still see one additional issue. Remember, the Accessibility Checker doesn't always catch everything. Look at the navigation pane on the left. Notice under College Policies I have a blank. When I click the blank in the navigation pane, it moves the insertion point to just above the Student Code of Conduct in the document. The non-printing character here indicates where I press the Enter key. With my insertion point in the blank area of the document, notice the Heading 3 style is selected in the Styles group on the Home ribbon. Remember, the styles are what create the structure of the document, and it provides many benefits such as generating an automated table of content. Also remember, screen readers use the structure created by the headings as a means of navigation. With this blank, a student will have a blank in their screen reader navigation, which may create confusion. To remove the blank, all I need to do is position my insertion point in the blank area of the document and then press the Delete key. Notice the blank is removed from the navigation pane. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the accessibility checker is available on PC only, not Mac. However, there are a few other resources that can check for accessibility issues. If you do not have a PC or just are interested in other options, here are a few. The Wave toolbar is free to download and installs as a toolbar within the Firefox browser. It works on password-protected pages and within the learning management system. The toolbar can be downloaded from webaim.org. I switched to the Firefox browser and noticed the Wave toolbar at the top of the screen. I do use this toolbar in addition to Word's accessibility checker, and you may have noticed it in the other video tutorials. The Vision Australia Blind and Low Vision Services website provides a free web accessibility toolbar that works similar to the Wave toolbar, except it is for the Internet Explorer browser. The link to the web page is rather long, so I shortened it here for you. If you have difficulty locating the toolbar, Google Toolbar Vision Australia and you should be able to find it. Although the toolbar is for the Internet Explorer browser, GRCC recommends that you use the Firefox browser with Blackboard Learn instead. The Web Accessibility Initiative website provides a list of over 100 more tools sorted by name, description, formats, guidelines, and more. I have the URL here, but you may also Google Web Accessibility Initiative Tools and you'll find it. To summarize, Microsoft Word Accessibility Checker helps to identify and repair issues in your document for PC users. It is not available for Mac users. Be aware that it does not catch every issue, but it is an excellent tool that not only helps to identify problems, it also provides step-by-step instructions for how to fix the problems. I did use it successfully to locate missing alt text, solve problems with a table, align an image correctly, and remove extra blanks. It did not flag me on the issue with my document structure containing a blank, a heading 3 blank, but I did notice it in the navigation pane. Wave, Vision Australia, and the Web Accessibility Initiative are additional free tools and resources to check for accessibility issues. If you are using a Mac or just want additional choices, these are a few worth exploring. I have completed my Word document, identified issues, and repaired them. I have applied all of the best practices demonstrated in the previous videos for creating well-structured content with headings, descriptive text for hyperlinks that will open outside of the Blackboard frame for when the document is converted to other file formats. The image contains alt text, and the table is simple and contains a text explanation along with identification of the header row. My last step is to convert this document to multiple file formats. Multiple file formats help ensure that your students will be able to view the information with their respective technologies. HTML hypertext markup language is the most accessible type of content, as it does not require additional software to view and works well with screen readers. I'll also convert the document to PDF, Adobe's portable document format. PDF is widely used on the web and for course content. It is another good format to consider for course content, as the software to view it is already installed on most computers. Please proceed to the final video for a demonstration on how to convert your Word document to PDF and HTML.